to Versus Character Card!
What's up and welcome to Versus Character Cards, the Versus show without the verses. Instead of analyzing two fighters via research and determining who would win in a battle, we are only covering a single fighter. This analysis can be used as a base for your own research in your own shows. Sort of like a versus cheat sheet. Be sure to stick around for the whole video too so you can see who we're covering next. But in today's episode, we are going over Specter from Ape Escape. Ape Escape was one of PlayStation's biggest franchises when it first came out and was the very first game to use the DualShock controller. Specter is the consistent antagonist across the franchise while the role of protagonist rotates from game to game. And because of this, he should have been the series rep in PlayStation All-Stars instead of Spike. But enough chattering, let's get into things.
There's no stopping us now. The future is mine! Ha 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 ha!
Specter is a little albino monkey whose story begins at an amusement park. He was a performing monkey and according to his own words, he was mistreated poorly. This actually makes his motivation understandable. He escapes and somehow makes his way to the laboratory of a genius inventor where he finds the Peak Point helmet. As the name implies, putting on this helmet will raise your intelligence to its maximum potential, making you extremely smart. So when Specter puts it on, he gains all the ability to put his plans into motion. His plans to take over the world and wipe out the humans, so only monkeys rule. But he can't exactly do this with smarts alone. The Peak Point helmet somehow increased his intelligence so much that he gained a bunch of other powers as well. I guess it's not too far-fetched since a lot of these powers are psychic, like mind controlling. Alright, so let's talk about the range of this thing. With the Peak Point helmet, Specter's able to control the minds of hundreds of monkeys at once, even when they're scattered across space and time. I mean, it seems to make sense because all the monkeys had their own lesser versions of the Peak Point helmets that Specter gave them, but it was still across space and time. This mind control can work on people not wearing the Peak Point helmet like humans or other creatures, but if they have a strong enough will, they can resist it. Specter also has telekinesis and mechanical augmentation. He can lift objects with his mind, but also control and manipulate machinery. He's able to teleport, he can fly, he can create shadow clones of himself, he can create force fields, shockwaves, shoot energy balls, and even just fire a big long laser beam. In addition to these powers, he also has weapons. He dual-wields stun clubs, which are basically beam swords from Smash. He has a jetpack to increase the speed of his flying abilities, and he has a tracker gun, which can turn you into a huge target for a massive satellite beam. All of this, in addition to his insane intelligence, surely makes him a force to be reckoned with. However, just because Specter is smart, doesn't mean he's wise. For example, Specter may be smart enough to construct a space station larger than the moon itself, but the space station was for his plan to split the world in half so the monkeys could have one side and the humans could fight over the other. Do you guys see anything wrong with that plan? Anything at all? Because the kid protagonists of the game sure did. So yeah, Specter is smart but not very knowledgeable. Even still, his power does seem great enough to save him sometimes from his lack of common sense. Now, admittedly, Specter doesn't have too many physical feats of his own. He's always the bad guy, waiting in the shadows until the protagonist arrives. The most he has by himself is surviving the explosion of this alien base when he had to fight for the good team. And this should only amount to something like building or city block levels of power. The protagonists of Ape Escape, though, give Specter some pretty nice buffs through scaling. Jimmy here, or Hikaru if you played the European or Japanese version of the game, survived a crash landing to Earth here. You know, that's pretty good, moves him up to about town level, until you realize this was just after Hikaru survived an explosion on the moon that was visible from space, at least continent levels of power. Alright, we're going up, but then we get to Ape Escape 3 with Dr. Tomoki, who survives the self-destruction of Specter's space station, which we previously brought up, is bigger than the moon. And since the space station was built durable enough to survive splitting the Earth in half, we can assume that the Ape Escape verse, including Specter, is around moon to planet levels of power. Now, speed is a lot easier to determine because Specter can just scale directly from his own monkeys. I mean, he could scale to the protagonists, they dodge shockwaves, bullets, and lasers constantly, but Specter's own monkeys have quick enough reaction speeds to pilot UFOs that can travel across the solar system in a matter of minutes. That's at least 30 times the speed of light, so keep an eye out for PlayStation's Pigmentless Primate. Ooh, proud of that alliteration.
そういうことだ。じゃあな。どうだい J？ 楽しかったか？
And now for the conclusion segment. In conclusion, Specter is super strong. While he may not be the wisest monkey around, this disadvantage would only really affect his long-term plans, nothing immediate like a fight to the end. Just like in the games, his own raw power should be enough to get him out of lots of trouble. He should be able to defeat popular tricksters like Kakashi from Naruto, or other well-known psychics like Lucas from the Mother series. But when he gets to opponents closer to his level, he starts to have a bit of trouble, as his psychic powers aren't quite as strong despite their impressive range. For example, if Specter were to play it safe, he may be able to defeat Mewtwo's base form from Pokemon. But if Mewtwo were to Mega Evolve, it would be all over for Specter. And don't even get me started on the Doctor. He's an episode for another time. Regardless of whether he wins or loses though, Specter would be a really fun character to use in your versus show. Now let's see who's next. Monkey.
Next time on Versus Character Cards, it's Negan from The Walking Dead.